So let's talk about this horror comedy Wacko, which is on Amazon Prime for free. This one came out in 1983. Oh no, 82. I think it's 82. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 82. But Wacko is a horror comedy, which at this time period, from what I know on top of my head, I think there were a couple of these horror comedies, but there weren't a lot. Student Bodies I have not seen, but I believe that had come out very close to that. Maybe, maybe not. I bet somebody down below will tell me. But Wacko is one of those horror comedies that I didn't expect much of. Honestly, I thought this wasn't... I didn't think that this would be a legit horror comedy. I thought it was just going to be a horror movie, but kind of a so bad it's good one. But this kind of falls in the same category where you have all this acting, which is really over the top and 80s as hell, but it works in this context of being a horror comedy. It feels literally like you're watching a horror movie from the 80s with cheesy acting, but because it's a comedy, it works more. I just think that's so weird that they did the exact same thing, but it's a comedy instead with the acting. It's very similar to comedy to a lot of 80s slashers or horror movies. And so this one, starting out, first off, there's a weird ass scene at the beginning, which made me go, oh man, that made me cringe. Where there's this daughter, freaking, in a bra, and her dad is just staring at her through the window and moaning. That's how it starts. I'm just like, what the fuck? Okay. Oh man. Then not even 4 minutes in, all these people get slaughtered by the lawnmower killer, which is a literal, a guy with a literal pumpkin on his head, an actual full-size pumpkin just on his head, which I thought was actually a cool design for a horror movie. That would have been cool to see in something else, even though it's silly in this one, but it's silly on purpose, obviously. Then again, we get another weird scene of the dad being creepy as hell and literally trying to take off this character Mary's dress while she's sleeping. It's weird because it's so wrong, but it's considered comedy in this movie because it's just she's like, "Oh, Dad, stop it!" It's funny because of that. But in the if that wasn't shown in that context, it would just be like, "Whoa, this is, man, I don't why is this in there?" But it does work because it's a comedy, I guess. Now, the story, if you did not know from the title, is that there's a Wacko loose. He's on the loose killing people. And he escaped the institution while there's a lot of goofy, quirky music playing. And the music in this is really fun, but it's really silly and quirky, like I just said. It sounds so familiar to me, and then I realized what it was. It was the Alfred Hitchcock theme from the show. I just thought that was funny that they have that in this. The but-up, 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 but-up. It's like a weird, quirky music, and it's what Alfred Hitchcock used in his show, I believe. Alfred Hitchcock, I don't know what the show's actually called, but I know there was a show that he did. And also the main plot is that this character Mary is, of course, trying to lose her virginity to the boyfriend, but he makes revving noises every time that she mentions sex or he thinks about sex. He just goes vroom vroom vroom, it's ridiculous. But whenever he does that, it makes her freak out because she's traumatized by lawnmowers. So it's a funny back and forth with that, where it's just it makes it humorous. And I like how there's funny gags in this movie too. There's a scene where they literally put on the screen, they put a notice that says that there's an unnecessary dream sequence about to happen. So go and get refreshments. Again, this really is a clever horror comedy. I actually think this one really does an interesting job of being... It reminded me of Airplane, and even the end credits did a similar thing to Airplane, where it showed all the actors, their names at the bottom, and it freeze framed on the actor. It does the same thing like Airplane did, which I thought was funny, because Airplane came out 2 years before this. then there's this funny scene of the parents asking a couple what they're going to do after prom, and the guy gets like what they're gonna do after prom, and the guy gets a boner so big that like the table like topples over. Like he's just sitting there and you hear boom, and then the table just falls right over. It's like, damn, okay. But jokes like that again are really working this because it has such a great charm to it. And then the scene with the rambling mom in the car where like she won't be quiet, and like what they do is they have an eject button and she flies out of the car off the bridge into the river. It's like it's ridiculous, but it's so funny. And again, it reminds me so much of an Airplane, like with that type of humor. And then there's funny moments where there's a little kid, evil kid named Damien, or there's the boyfriend is literally named Norman Bates, and they go to his house, and his mother is the dead skeleton corpse from Psycho of Mrs. Bates, and he's feeding her food. It's awesome. And also Andrew Dice Clay, like twists his head like 360 like The Exorcist. Yeah, yeah, it's just it cracks me up how hilarious this one was. Like it was legitimately funny and charming, and these characters were fun and charming, and it had that certain way 80s horror movies did with the acting and like over the topness. But because it was actually a horror comedy instead of just a horror movie. I think it worked way better. Even though there are some really over the top silly slashers that I like, this one just it's so fun because it knows what it is. It knows that it's a really silly horror comedy and it's not trying to be anything different. So I really enjoyed this one on first watch. Wacko was a really fun one. I recommend you guys go see this one. It's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. Tell me down below what you think of this if you have seen Wacko, and thank you guys so much for watching.